The library of the Galactic Academy was quiet. It was always quiet. The great halls stretched for miles in every direction, filled with data crystals and holographic screens that held the knowledge of 10,000 civilizations. Light from distant stars filtered through the massive windows, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Sat alone at his desk in the corner. He was a species known for their 4 eyes and blue skin. His people were scholars, scientists, and thinkers. They had joined the Galactic Council 300 years ago, and since then, they had dedicated themselves to learning everything about the universe. Today was working on his thesis. He needed to study the species ranking system that the Academy used. It was a simple task, really. The Academy ranked every known intelligent species based on their survival abilities, their adaptability, and their potential threat level. The ranking had existed for thousands of years, updated every cycle by the Council's top researchers. Opened the database on his screen. Numbers and names began to scroll past his 4 eyes. There were over 12,000 species in the ranking. Most of them he had never heard of. Some were extinct. Some were so new they had only been discovered in the last few cycles. He scrolled down slowly, reading the names. They were there, ranked in the top 50. They were massive creatures with armored skin and claws that could cut through steel. Had seen one once at a diplomatic meeting. It had terrified him. They were ranked even higher. They were telepaths who could read minds and control thoughts. Their entire civilization was built on mental power. Many species feared them, and for good reason. Kept scrolling. He passed a species of hunters who could see in complete darkness. He passed who could survive in the vacuum of space without any protection. He passed whose bodies were made of living fire. Each species was more impressive than the last. Each one had some special ability, some evolutionary gift that made them dangerous and powerful. Expected the top 10 to be filled with the most terrifying creatures in the galaxy. He expected to see at number 1, or perhaps maybe even with their perfect night vision and hunting instincts. He scrolled to the top of the list. Rank 10, Rank 9, Rank 8, Blinked all 4 of his eyes. There were only rank 8. That seemed wrong. They were one of the most feared species in the galaxy. Who could possibly be ranked higher? Rank 7, Rank 6, Rank 5, a species called did not know them. Rank 4, a species from an ice world who could survive temperatures that would freeze most life forms solid. Rank 3, the massive creatures with poison that could kill in seconds. Rank 2, the beings made of pure darkness who could move through shadows. His fingers trembled slightly as he scrolled to the very top. Who could possibly be ranked above all of these terrifying species? What kind of monster held the number 1 position? Rank 1 Homo, origin Earth, classification apex predator. Stared at the screen. He did not understand. He read the words again very slowly. Homo. Humans. He knew about humans. Everyone in the galaxy knew about humans. They had joined the Galactic Council only 50 cycles ago. They were one of the species in the Alliance. They were small, soft, and fragile. They had no claws, no armor, no telepathy. They could not breathe in space or survive extreme temperatures. They were weak. And yet, according to the Academy's official ranking system, they were the most dangerous species in the entire galaxy. Laughed. It was a nervous sound that echoed in the empty library. Surely this was a mistake. Surely someone had made an error in the database. Perhaps it was a joke. Some of the younger students liked to play pranks on the data systems. He checked the source of the ranking. It came directly from the Council's central database. It had been by 17 different research teams across 12 different worlds. It was not a joke. It was not an error. Humans were ranked number 1. Leaned back in his chair. His 4 eyes kept returning to the screen, to those 2 simple words. Homo. He had met a human once at an orientation ceremony for new students. The human had been small, barely reaching shoulder. It had smiled at him and offered its hand in greeting, had touched the human's fingers briefly, feeling how soft and warm they were. That creature was supposed to be the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Shook his head. There had to be an explanation. There had to be some reason why the humans were ranked so high. Perhaps they had some hidden ability that was not obvious. Perhaps their technology was more advanced than anyone realized. He needed to investigate. He needed to understand. Saved his thesis file and opened a new research project. He typed in the search term, Human Species Analysis. The screen filled with thousands of files. Reports, studies, observations, and warnings. So much information about one small species from one small planet. Picked the first file and began to read. The title was simple, Earth, a Death World. He did not know what a death world was, but as he read the first few lines, a cold feeling began to spread through his body. Earth was not a paradise. Earth was not a safe world where life grew gently and peacefully. Earth was a nightmare, a world of violence, disaster, and death, a world where everything tried to kill everything else. And humans had not just survived there, they had conquered it. Kept reading, his 4 eyes growing wider with each paragraph. By the time he finished the first file, his hands were shaking. By the time he finished the 10th file, he understood why humans were ranked number 1. And he was terrified. The library was still quiet. The stars still shone through the windows, but no longer felt safe in this peaceful place. Because somewhere in this academy there were human students, and now he knew what they really were. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Tomorrow he would learn more. Tomorrow he would dig deeper into the history of humanity. But tonight he would not sleep well. Woke up the next morning with a headache. He had spent the whole night thinking about what he had discovered. His dreams had been filled with images of Earth, of storms and fires and creatures with sharp teeth. When the light from the Academy's artificial sun filled his room, he was already awake. He got dressed quickly and walked to the dining hall. The Academy fed students from hundreds of different worlds, so the hall was filled with strange smells and colors. Found a table in the corner and sat down with his nutrient paste. He was not hungry, but he ate anyway. Around him, students of every shape and size talked and laughed. A group sat near the windows, their massive bodies taking up 3 tables. A glided past, its silver robes floating behind it like smoke. 2 hunters sat in the shadows, their dark eyes watching everything. And at the far end of the hall, a small group of humans sat together. Watched them carefully. There were 4 of them, 2 males and 2 females. They were eating something red and wet. Did not want to know what it was. The humans were laughing about something, their voices loud and cheerful. They looked so normal, so harmless. Finished his paste and left the hall. He needed answers. He needed to find someone who could explain the ranking to him. Surely there was a logical reason. Surely the council had made a mistake. He went to the Office of Species Classification. It was a small building near the center of the academy, filled with old records and tired administrators. Found the main desk and waited until an elderly looked up at him. "Can I help you, young one?" the administrator asked. "I have a question about the species ranking," said. "I was doing research for my thesis, and I found something strange." The administrator's 4 eyes narrowed. "What did you find?" "Humans," said. "They are ranked number 1, above everyone." The administrator was silent for a long moment. Then he let out a slow breath. "Ah," he said, "you found that." "Is it a mistake?" asked. "It has to be a mistake. Humans are weak. They have no natural weapons. They cannot survive extreme conditions. How can they possibly be ranked above species that can kill with a thought?" The administrator stood up slowly. He was very old, realized. His blue skin was faded and his movements were stiff. "Come with me," the administrator said. I want to show you something." Followed him through the building, down a long hallway, and into a small room filled with old data crystals. The administrator picked one up and placed it in a reader. A holographic image appeared in the air. It showed a planet, a blue and green world covered with clouds. "Earth," the administrator said, "the human." "I know," said, "I read about it last night. It is a death world." "Yes," the administrator agreed. "But do you understand what that means? Do you truly understand?" He changed the image. Now it showed a massive storm, a spinning circle of clouds that covered half a continent. "Hurricanes," the administrator said, "winds that can destroy cities. They happen every cycle on Earth." Another image, a mountain exploding, sending fire and ash into the sky. "Volcanoes, they erupt without warning. They can kill millions." Another image, a wave of water impossibly tall crashing onto a shore. "Tsunamis, walls of water that sweep away everything in their path." Another image, the ground cracking open, buildings falling. "Earthquakes, the very ground moves and shakes. Whole cities collapse." Watched in horror as more images appeared. Floods, droughts, ice ages, meteor strikes. The planet Earth seemed to be trying to destroy itself and everything on it. "And that is just the planet," the administrator said quietly. "We have not even discussed the life forms." He showed images of Earth's creatures, massive sharks with rows of teeth, lions and tigers with claws like knives, snakes with venom that could stop a heart, spiders, crocodiles, bears, wolves. "Every creature on Earth is a predator or a prey," the administrator said. "There is no safety, there is no peace. Everything fights to survive." "But humans have no claws," said weakly. "No armor, no venom." "No," the administrator agreed. "They have something worse." He changed the image one more time. Now it showed a group of early humans standing in a circle around a fire. "They think," the administrator said. "They plan, they work together. When a human cannot kill something with its hands, it makes a tool. When a tool is not enough, it makes a weapon. When a weapon is not enough, it makes a bigger weapon." Another image appeared. This one showed a mushroom cloud rising into the sky like a terrible flower. "They split the atom," the administrator said. "They created fire that could destroy cities in seconds. They did this to fight each other, not to fight aliens, not to fight monsters, to fight other humans. Felt sick, they used this weapon on themselves." "Twice," the administrator said. "And then they made more, many more, enough to destroy their entire planet several times over." "Why would they do that?" "Because that is what humans are," the administrator said. "They are survivors. They will do anything to survive, anything to win. They have no limits, no boundaries. When they are pushed, they push back harder. When they are threatened, they do not run. They fight." He turned off the images. The room was dark and quiet. "The ranking is not a mistake," the administrator said. "The council has studied humans for 50 cycles. Every time we think we understand them, they surprise us. Every time we think they have reached their limit, they exceed it." "But they seem so friendly," said. "I met one at orientation. It smiled at me." "Yes," the administrator said. "Humans are friendly. They are kind and generous and curious. They make friends easily. They love to laugh and play and explore." He paused. "But when something threatens them or the people they love, they become something else. Something ancient and terrifying. Something that remembers what it took to survive on Earth." The administrator walked toward the door. "My advice to you, young one, be friends with humans, be kind to them, make them like you, because you never ever want to be their enemy." He left alone in the dark room. Stood there for a long time thinking about what he had learned. The images of Earth burned in his mind. The storms, the volcanoes, the weapons of fire. And the humans, sitting in the dining hall, laughing and eating like nothing was wrong. They were not predators because of their bodies. They were predators because of their minds, because they never gave up, because they never stopped fighting. Left the office and walked back to his room. He needed to think. He needed to understand. But most of all, he needed to stay on the humans' good side. The administrator's words echoed in his head. You never, ever want to be their enemy. Believed him. 3 days passed. Could not stop thinking about humans. He went to his classes and listened to his professors, but his mind was always somewhere else. He kept watching the human students whenever he saw them. They walked through the academy halls like everyone else. They attended lectures and ate in the dining hall and studied in the library. They seemed so ordinary. But knew better now. He knew what hid behind those soft faces and warm smiles. He knew the truth about their world, their history, their nature. And he needed to know more. On the 4th day, returned to the library. He found his usual desk in the corner and opened the Academy's historical database. He typed a simple search, human history. The screen filled with files, thousands of them, tens of thousands. The humans had only been in contact with the galaxy for 50 cycles, but they had brought their entire history with them. Every war, every discovery, every triumph and tragedy was recorded in the database. Started at the beginning. The first humans were small and weak. They lived on a continent called Africa, surrounded by predators that were bigger, faster, and stronger than them. By all logic, they should have died out. They should have been eaten by the lions and leopards that hunted them. But they did not die. They learned to make tools from stone. They learned to work together in groups. They learned to communicate with sounds that became words. And slowly, generation by generation, they became the dominant species on their continent. Then they spread. Read about the great migrations. Humans walked out of Africa and into every corner of their planet. They crossed deserts and mountains and frozen wastelands. They built boats and sailed across oceans. Wherever they went, they adapted. They changed their clothes and their food and their shelters to match each new environment. Nothing could stop them, not ice ages, not droughts, not floods, not the massive animals that roamed the earth in those ancient times. Read about the mammoths, giant creatures covered in thick fur. The humans hunted them to extinction. He read about the saber-toothed cats, predators with teeth as long as knives. The humans killed them all. He read about the giant sloths, the dire wolves, the cave bears. All gone, all destroyed by creatures that had no claws and no fangs. Felt a chill run down his spine. This was not luck. This was not accident. Humans were not just survivors. They were conquerors. They took control of every environment they entered and eliminated anything that stood in their way. He kept reading. The humans built cities. They learned to grow food instead of hunting for it. They created governments and laws and religions. They developed art and music and writing. And then they started fighting each other. Read about the wars. So many wars, the files seemed endless. Wars over land, wars over resources, wars over beliefs, wars that lasted years, wars that lasted centuries. The numbers were horrifying. In one war called World War II, over 60 million humans died. 60 million. That was more than the entire population of us, all dead in just 6 cycles. And the humans did not stop after that war. They kept building weapons, bigger weapons, better weapons. They created bombs that could level cities in an instant. They created poisons that could kill millions. They created machines that could destroy all life on their planet. Closed the file, his hands were shaking. How could any species survive such violence? How could they keep going after so much death and destruction? Any other civilization would have collapsed. Any other species would have given up. But humans never gave up. Opened another file. This one was about human biology. He learned that humans could survive injuries that would kill most other species. They could lose limbs and keep living. They could take damage to their internal organs and recover. Their bodies healed faster than almost any other known life form. He learned that humans could run for incredibly long distances. Not fast, but far. In ancient times, they hunted animals by simply following them until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. The humans never stopped. They just kept going, hour after hour, until their prey could not move anymore. He learned about something called adrenaline. When humans were frightened or angry, their bodies released chemicals that made them stronger, faster, and more resistant to pain. In moments of crisis, ordinary humans could lift weights that should be impossible. They could ignore wounds that should stop them. They could push past limits that should not be broken. Thought about the implications. Humans were already dangerous when they were calm. When they were threatened, when their survival instincts activated, they became something else entirely. He opened another file. This one was about human psychology. He read about something called spite. Humans would sometimes hurt themselves just to hurt an enemy more. They would sacrifice their own to make sure someone who wronged them suffered. This made no logical sense. It was wasteful and counterproductive, but humans did it anyway. He read about stubbornness. Humans would continue fighting long after any rational being would surrender. They would keep trying even when success was impossible. They would rather die than admit defeat. He read about revenge. Humans remembered wrongs done to them. They remembered for years, for decades, for lifetimes, and they waited, they planned. And when the moment was right, they struck back, no matter how long it took. Closed the file and stared at the blank screen. This was why humans were ranked number one. Not because of their strength or their speed or their natural weapons, because they never stopped, because they never quit, because they would do absolutely anything to survive and win. They were strong, but they could be defeated. They were powerful, but they could be outsmarted. Every species in the galaxy had limits. Humans had none. Thought about the human students he had seen in the dining hall, the ones laughing and smiling, the ones who looked so harmless and friendly. Those same humans came from a world that tried to kill them every day. Those same humans had ancestors who survived ice ages and plagues and wars. Those same humans carried tens of thousands of cycles of survival instincts in their blood. They were friendly because they chose to be friendly. They were kind because they chose to be kind. But if that choice ever changed, if something ever pushed them to their limits, they would become the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever seen. Stood up from his desk. He needed air. He needed to clear his head. He walked out of the library and into the academy gardens. The artificial sun was warm on his skin. Trees and flowers from 100 different worlds grew in carefully arranged patterns. Students walked along the paths, talking and laughing. A group of humans passed by. One of them, a female with long dark hair, smiled as she walked past. "Nice day, right?" she said. Could only nod. The human continued walking, chatting with her friends about some assignment or class. So normal, so ordinary, so incredibly, terrifyingly dangerous. Sat down on a bench and watched the humans disappear around a corner. He thought about everything he had learned. The death world, the endless wars, the biological and psychological traits that made humans the perfect survivors. And he realized something important. He did not want to just study humans from a distance. He wanted to understand them. He wanted to know them. He wanted to see with his own eyes what made them so special. Tomorrow, he decided, he would talk to a human, not just a greeting in passing, a real conversation. It was the only way to truly understand. And was a scholar, understanding was what he did. Found his chance at the Combat Training Center. The academy required all students to take basic self-defense classes, regardless of their field of study. Hated these classes. He was a scholar, not a fighter. His thin arms and narrow body were built for reading, not for throwing punches. But the rules were clear, and so every week he went to the training center and tried not to embarrass himself. Today was different. Today he had a purpose. The training center was a massive dome filled with different practice areas. Some were for weapons training. Some were for hand-to-hand combat. Some were for species with special abilities, like the who practiced their mental techniques in shielded rooms. Walked past the sparring pit, where two massive creatures were hitting each other with enough force to crack stone. He walked past the agility course, where hunters leaped and rolled through obstacle after obstacle. He walked past the survival chamber, where students practiced holding their breath in vacuum conditions. And then he found the human area. It was smaller than the others, set up in a corner of the dome. A simple mat covered the floor. Basic practice weapons hung on the walls. Nothing special, nothing impressive. But a crowd had gathered. Pushed through the crowd until he could see what was happening. On the mat, a human female was fighting 3 opponents at once. Not other humans. A small and something that looked like a giant spider with too many eyes. The human was young, maybe 18 or 19 cycles old by human counting. She had short black hair and dark eyes. Her body was covered in sweat and she was breathing hard, but she was smiling. The attacked first. It was fast, faster than its eyes could follow. Its claws slashed through the air toward the human's throat. The human ducked, not backward, not to the side, but forward and down. She rolled under this arm and came up behind it. Before it could turn, she swept its legs and sent it crashing to the mat. The charge next. It was not as big as the adults had seen, but it was still twice the human's size. It swung its armored fist in a blow that could break bones. The human did not try to block. Instead, she grabbed this arm and used its own momentum against it. She twisted, turned, and somehow sent the massive creature flying over her shoulder. It landed on the mat with a crash that shook the floor. The spider creature attacked from above, dropping from somewhere had not even noticed. Its legs reached for the human, trying to wrap around her. The human rolled sideways, came up on one knee, and threw a practice knife with perfect accuracy. It hit the spider creature in a joint between 2 of its legs. Not a killing blow, but enough to make it hesitate. And in that moment of hesitation, the human moved. She grabbed the spider creature's nearest leg, pulled hard, and brought it down. Before it could recover, she was on top of it, her forearm pressed against what might have been its throat. "Yield," she said. Her voice was calm, almost casual. The spider creature tapped the mat twice, the signal for surrender. The human stood up and offered her hand to help the creature rise. The crowd cheered and clapped, found himself clapping too, though he was not sure why. A voice spoke beside him. "She is good, yes." Turned. A human male stood next to him. He was taller than the female, with short brown hair and friendly eyes. He wore the same training clothes as the fighters on the mat. "Very good," said carefully. "I have never seen anyone move like that." The human laughed. "That is, she has been training since she was 5 years old. Her parents were soldiers." "And you," asked, "do you fight like that?" "Me, no." The human shook his head. "I am better with words than fists. My name is." "I am." Smiled and offered his hand. Remembered this human custom. He reached out and shook's hand. The human's grip was firm but gentle. "You are," said. "I have read about your people, great thinkers and scientists." "And humans are great fighters, it seems," replied. Smile faded slightly. "Not all of us. Some of us just want to learn and explore, like you, I think." On the mat was helping to its feet. The creature looked stunned, as if it could not believe it had been defeated by something so small, patted its shoulder in a friendly way and said something that made the laugh. "She is also very kind," said, following's gaze. "Does not like hurting people. She fights because she is good at it and because the academy needs fighters, but she would rather make friends than enemies." Thought about everything he had learned about humans, the death world, the endless wars, the survival instincts that never stopped. "May I ask you something?" said. "Of course." The scar on your arm pointed to a long white line that ran from his elbow to his wrist. How did you get it? Looked down at his arm. He seemed surprised that had noticed. Car accident, he said. When I was 12, a vehicle lost control and hit the one I was riding in. My arm was cut by broken glass. Felt his 4 eyes widen. That sounds terrible. Were you badly hurt? Broken arm, broken ribs, lots of cuts. Shrugged. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. The doctors said I was lucky to survive. And you are just fine now. You do not have fear of vehicles. Laughed. I drove to the Academy's landing port myself. Cars are useful. You cannot stop using something useful just because it hurt you once. Stared at the human. He had read about this in his research. The ability to face trauma and move past it. The refusal to let pain control behavior. But seeing it in person was different. On the mat was stretching. She noticed and watching and walked over to them. Up close, could see more scars on her arms and hands. Small white lines, old wounds that had healed long ago. New friend asked. This is, said. He was admiring your fighting. Grinned. I was showing off a little. It is fun to surprise people who think humans are weak. I do not think humans are weak, said quickly. I have been researching your species. You are remarkable. And exchanged a look. Something passed between them, some understanding that could not read. You have been reading the files, said. It was not a question. Yes, admitted. The species ranking, the history of your world, I wanted to understand. Nodded slowly. Many aliens read those files and become afraid of us. They see the wars and the weapons, and they think we are monsters. Are you not? Asked before he could stop himself. Smile did not fade. We can be, when we need to be, but we can also be kind and gentle and loving. That is the thing about humans, we choose what we are. Every day we choose. And you choose to be kind. Today, yes. Eyes were steady and calm. Tomorrow, yes, always if I can help it. But if something threatens the people I love, if something tries to destroy what I care about, she paused. Then I choose something else. Put a hand on shoulder. Do not worry, friend. As long as you are not trying to kill us or conquer our planet, you have nothing to fear from humans. We are the best friends you could ask for. And the worst enemies, added quietly. Looked at these 2 humans, so different from each other. One a warrior, one a thinker, but both carrying the same thing inside them, the same fire, the same will to survive. Would you like to get food with us? Asked. The dining hall is serving something from your today. We could try it together. Thought for only a moment before nodding. Yes, he said, I would like that very much. As they walked out of the training center together, realized something important. He had come here to understand humans from a distance, like a scientist studying animals through glass. But humans were not animals to be studied. They were people to be known. And now, for the first time, had a chance to know them properly. As friends. 6 weeks passed, spent more and more time within. They ate together in the dining hall. They studied together in the library. They walked through the academy gardens and talked about their worlds, their families, their dreams. Learned that wanted to be a diplomat. He dreamed of traveling to different worlds and helping species understand each other. He believed that communication could solve any problem, that words were more powerful than weapons. He learned that wanted to be a protector, not a soldier, but a guardian. She wanted to use her skills to keep innocent people safe from harm. She trained every day because she believed that being strong meant having a duty to protect the weak. They were so different from the monsters had expected. They were kind and generous and funny. They made him laugh. They made him think. They made him feel like he belonged. But never forgot what he had learned. He never forgot the files and the statistics and the warnings. Underneath the smiles and the laughter, his friends were still human. They were still the apex predators of the galaxy. He just had not seen that side of them yet. That changed on a day that started like any other. Was walking through the academy's main plaza when he heard shouting. A crowd had gathered near the fountain in the center of the square. Students were backing away, creating a wide circle around something. Pushed through the crowd to see what was happening. In the center of the circle stood it was one of the massive creatures that had read about in the rankings. Its body was covered in sharp spines, and poison dripped from its mandibles. Its wings buzzed with an angry sound that made its bones vibrate. Facing the was. She stood alone, her hands raised in a calming gesture. Behind her, a small group of younger students huddled together. They were first years, realized. Children by most species standards. They looked terrified. "Let them go," said. Her voice was steady and calm. "They did not mean to insult you. It was a misunderstanding." The clicked its mandibles. "They laughed at me. They mocked my voice. They will pay." "They are children," said. "They do not understand your ways yet. I will teach them. I will make sure they never disrespect you again. But hurting them will not solve anything." The took a step forward. Its wings spread wide, making it look even larger. "Step aside, human. This is not your concern." Did not move. Looked around desperately. Where were the academy guards? Where were the professors? Someone needed to stop this before it got worse. But the crowd just watched. No one moved to help. There was ranked third in the galaxy. Its poison could kill in seconds. No one wanted to risk their life. "I said step aside," the hissed. It raised one of its sharp limbs, ready to strike. And then something changed. Saw it happen. He saw the moment when stopped being the friendly girl he ate lunch with. He saw the moment when something ancient and terrible woke up behind her eyes. Her posture shifted, her shoulders dropped, her hands unclenched, and her face became completely, perfectly still. "No," she said. Just one word, but it was not a request. It was not a plea. It was a statement of fact, as certain as gravity, as final as death. The hesitated. Something in its voice had reached through its anger and touched something deep in its brain. Some instinct, some ancient warning system that told it danger was near. "You think you scare me, human," the said, but its voice was less certain now. Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of something that had faced death 1,000 times and never blinked. "I do not need to scare you," she said. "I just need to stop you, and I will, whatever it takes." She took a step forward, just one step, but took a step back. "I have studied your anatomy," continued. Her voice was conversational, almost casual. "I know where your nerve clusters are. I know which joints bend the wrong way. I know exactly how much force it takes to crack your exoskeleton." Another step forward, another step back. "I have never killed a before. I do not want to today. But if you hurt those children, if you touch even one of them, I will find out if my studies were correct. And you will be the first to die to a human in hand-to-hand combat." The plaza was silent. No one moved, no one breathed. The stared at, its mandibles clicked nervously. Its wings folded back against its body, a sign of submission. "You are insane," it said. "No," replied, "I am human." For a long moment, nothing happened. The and the human faced each other in the center of the plaza, two apex predators measuring each other. Then the turned away. "This is not over," it said, but it was already walking away, pushing through the crowd. Within seconds, it was gone. Shoulders relaxed. The terrible stillness left her face. She turned to the young students behind her and smiled, and suddenly she was just again. Just the friendly girl who liked to spar and eat strange foods and make jokes about her professors. "Are you all okay?" she asked the students. They nodded, too shocked to speak. "Good, go to your rooms, stay there until a professor comes to talk to you. Everything is going to be fine." The students ran off. The crowd began to break apart, murmuring to each other about what they had seen, pushed through until he reached. "That was amazing," he said. That was terrifying. I have never seen anything like that. Looked at him. For a moment saw a flash of something in her eyes. Tiredness, maybe, or sadness. It was necessary, she said. Those children needed help. No one else was going to give it to them. But they could have killed you. Yes, agreed, but it did not. Appeared beside them. He looked pale. I saw the whole thing. You are crazy. Maybe, said. She smiled, and this time it was her real smile, warm and kind. But those kids are safe. That is what matters. Stared at his friend. He thought about everything he had learned about humans, the death world, the wars, the weapons, the survival instincts that never gave up. And now he understood. Humans were not apex predators because of their strength or their weapons or their biology. They were apex predators because they refused to give up, because they would face any enemy, no matter how powerful, because they would sacrifice themselves for others without hesitation. They were not monsters, they were protectors, warriors, guardians. They were exactly what the galaxy needed. Thank you, said quietly. Looked at him with surprise. For what? For showing me what humans really are. Put her arm around his shoulder. It was a human gesture of friendship, one that had learned to appreciate. We are just people, she said. People who refuse to quit, that is all. Looked up at the artificial sky of the Academy dome. Somewhere out there among the stars, countless species lived and died and struggled to survive. Powerful species, dangerous species, species with claws and fangs and psychic powers. And above them all, ranked number one, were the humans. Not because they were the strongest, because they were the most stubborn, because they were the most determined, because no matter what the universe threw at them, they just kept going. Smiled, he finally understood. And he was very, very glad to call them friends.